Hey there, Paul here. Just came from outside, and by outside I mean the rest of the store where it's cold. But I do have a question for you. Are you dry? If you are dry, it's probably because it's winter. And especially if you're from Toronto, Ontario, or just much of the Southern Ontario in general, because we've had a record-breaking January. Starting off with the fact that for a little bit there, we were the coldest place on Earth. And then afterwards, we were consistently one of the coldest places on Earth. It was ridiculous. But then following that, and so, you know what? It overlapped too, is record-breaking snowfall, where for nearly 3 weeks in a row, we've had snowfalls, two snowstorms specifically that hammered us. And it didn't melt because of how cold it is. And this most recent one, the week of the 24th January, we reached snowfalls of up to 60 centimeters. That's 2 feet. 2 feet of snow for our American friends. So it's been a little ridiculous. So I'm going to go back to my previous question. Are you dry? If you are, maybe the solution is glaze medium. What? You expected a solution to be lube or something? No. Onto the video. So it's admittedly a little nicer now. But when you scroll down the dates and the temperatures here for the next week and a half, yeah, man, this is the temperatures of doom and despair. This is what Toronto's in for the next week and a half to 2 weeks. Disgusting. Glaze medium, why it works, how it works, and how it solves their drying out problems is the main point of this video. Of course, you can use glaze medium for another part, and I'll actually show it later and talk about it. But really, it's going to be about why your paints dry out so fast in the winter. And that's the crux of today's video. And that's because it's just too damn cold, man. Too damn dry. Basically, there's no moisture in the air. It's why they recommend using a humidifier to emulate or semi-emulate the weather and the moisture level in the air during the summer, right? Because it's better for your skin. Your skin doesn't dry out too much. It's also a more comfortable living environment. Whereas during winter, there's barely any of that. What does that mean? That means that your paint just dries out faster. Now, this is a uniquely water-based acrylic problem. If you use lacquer, enamel, or solvent-based acrylics, and solvent, I mean Tamiya acrylics is all solvent-based, and then Mr. Hobby Aqueous H paints are also all solvent. And of course, you know, lacquer and enamel, that's no need for explanation there. But yeah, it doesn't really affect you unless you use water-based acrylics. For one, lacquer, you're already expecting a fast dry out. They dry out the fastest regardless. And enamel, the effect is negligible. Same with solvent-based acrylics because of that added alcohol. So really, if you're using water-based, pay attention. This may save your miniature. And that is the reason why you should have a humidifier on at all times, though please clean it. Might grow mold inside with a filter. Anyway, so that is what we're discussing today. The paint we will be using for this demo is pure red from Army Paint, Fanatic Paints. And we're going to leave 3 dots here. One right here on the very left is the control dot, basically just purely the paint. So that's 2 drops right there. And then in the middle here, we would have 2 drops of the one we will use water on. And then right here at the very edge, it was the control. I keep saying control, but you know what I mean. Basically, the sample that we're going to be using glaze medium on, right? And in fact, if you want, just to make it fair, this will be just by itself. This will be water, and that would be the medium because I applied that first just to see the difference. So I'm not going to apply anything on the right. And then for the one in the middle will be water. I will be mixing in water here. So let's put 3 parts, right? So that's a little runny. There we go. Just mix that thoroughly. And for this one, 3 drops of glaze medium. And then just mix. There's a drop there in the corner. I'm not going to be using that drop. So there it is. And in fact, you know, just to make it fair, add a bit more. water. So that's me cleansing it in the background. That's the swirling in here. So there's no cross-contamination. So we will be trying to start a timer here. Let's just do a stopwatch, actually. 3, 2, 1. And then we'll just do sort of a plus minus thing. So plus 1 minute, essentially, because I dilly-dally there. But yeah, we'll do this, and then we'll come back to it and see what happens. So remember, medium, water, nothing. It's been 20 minutes. Let's check up on the paint, shall we? Let me just grab a new brush. And yeah, just to see. So again, just to reiterate, this is the one with the medium, 3 drops of it. This one on 4 drops of water, just to make sure it doesn't dry out that fast. And this is the one that doesn't have anything mixed in. So it's just a control group. Let's see. Oh, it's already forming some sort of skin. You saw that? Starting to dry out already. That's not good, actually. Then that in water. Swirl it around. Now let's dry it out, just so we don't overly dilute the second option. Okay, it's starting to dry out too, but it's definitely in a better shape, right? Let's add a bit of water, because it definitely lost a bit of water there when I swirled it around and took it off. And then let's see the medium. Oh yeah. It's still really wet. So, it's in action. Let's keep going a little further. So 21 minutes now. So really 22. Remember I said add a minute. We've officially hit the 30-minute mark. And let's further check. Again, this is the control group. Nothing on it. Yeah, it's basically dry. It doesn't even swirl anymore. And then let's check the middle with water. Okay. Still going, but you can tell it's like dried right there. You can still see the outline, right? You still see the outline. But it definitely won't go as far anymore. See, look, it's not even going far at all. But let's see the medium. Oh, yeah. It's gonna go places. Now, it's certainly dried as well, and you can tell. But it's going a lot farther. And why is this important? This is what I'm talking about, or you're about to see anyway. This is the Saturn Dreadnought. This is from last year's Warhammer releases. Also, I'm about to publish an article regarding the paint job of this monstrosity. He's chunky, he's hefty. So hopefully by the time this video is uploaded, I will have had at least the first article of this series, probably 3 or 4, published on our website, somewherhobbies.ca. Look forward to that, unless I slack. Anyway, so it's more apparent here on the shoulder pad, what I'm about to talk about, but you can already see it on the body as well. The matter of streaking. Basically, when you're painting, you're fighting gravity, and there's really nothing you can do about gravity. You can only sort of kind of mitigate it. And what's the best way to do that? Well, basically, don't overfill your brush, but also thinning your paints properly. It's a mix of both. See, if you don't thin your paint enough, or you thin it too much with water, by the way, with water, both and will end up dripping off of the panels. But really, the problem here is that the slightly thicker paint will cause more streaking, or the more overloaded paint also will cause more streaking, because as it's dripping because of gravity, it's starting to dry out. And that is why this one in particular here, it just stopped from dripping all the way. It just dried, right? So it formed this streak. It's gross. And you can kind of see it on the back too. Same sort of deal. Same thing here. Now, I did this on purpose, and it's a very easy fix. You can easily hide this because ultimately these are thin layers, but at the same time, you don't want this to appear at all. You want it to be thinned out properly. But even if you thin it out properly, winter is still a thing, and water-based acrylics dry fast. This is where the medium comes in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be bringing this back to its original color to see and show you how easy it is to repair. Its original color, by the way, is True Metallic Metal Obsidian Black. This is the original color, right? So that's before I apply the wash. And what I'm going to do is afterwards, we're going to be putting on the wash that I used before, but this time with proper sort of thinning techniques, i.e. using a medium and not overfilling my brush. I'm still going to be soaking it, but not too much. So, and you'll see the difference. I'm just going to be dry brushing it on pretty heavily. Just show you how easy it is to repair something like this. Right, just dry brushing it in. Right, this is the XL dry brush from Vallejo, and it's basically back to its original color, which was gunmetal. That's what obsidian black is, by the way. So I'm just gonna let this dry, and we're cooking. Yeah, so obsidian black, by the way, is gunmetal. That's why it's dark, but this is the original color, and the streaks are done. Simple thin coat of the original color should suffice. So this is obsidian black wash, almost a thick sludge-like sort of wash from the True Metallic Metal line. And I purposely applied it initially way back when to kind of prove a point, which is this video. But now what I'm going to do is apply a bit more medium here. I already applied a little bit, but so all I'm doing is just thinning it, right? And I'll make sure not to overfill my brush. Maybe one more drop. And what you're doing here is essentially sort of making almost like a contrast paint sort of thinness, right? Because there are some contrast paints out there that are so thin. Some are thicker than others, but some are just water thin. It's a little ridiculous, actually. And when you apply this a little bit more thoughtfully, it results in something a little bit more smoother, a little bit nicer. And that's because not only does it slow the drying time, but it also just smooths it out a little bit more compared to water. So if we apply it like this, sort of evenly, right? You can see, well, first of all, I didn't apply it a lot. Well, I did, but I didn't overload my brush to the point where it would start dripping everywhere. And the magic of this is I can just propagate it somewhere else if it's a little too overfilled. Like the coils here at the top, I can just spread them around. Spread the love, guys. Not to worry. So it would still settle in the recesses, but no dripping is happening. Nothing. That's what you want to do. This smoothness, right, where you're propagating it all over the miniature isn't really possible if it's water. It would have dried already, especially if the paint is this thin, right? So see, I'm just distributing it, and we will have a smoother, sexier product as a result. See, I'm just keep distributing it till you're satisfied. Just the main point is to get into the recesses. There's also another technique I like to do, which is dabbing off the excess. But the brush is a little filled with just medium, no paint. And this will absorb any sort of excess wash that you applied. Make it a little bit neater. So do this before it dries, and then add a little bit more medium, the medium itself. Just dab, just literally dab it on. It will absorb anything excess, allowing for a smoother finish. Because remember, with a medium, your paints will dry slower, but more evenly. So by doing this, you're going to have some sort of almost borderline airbrushed look, So this is a technique that if you use a lot of enamels, you're extremely familiar with because it's the exact same technique with a sponge brush and removal of the excess wash, right, with mineral spirits. Exact same thing. All right, so it's been about an hour. It's still not dry, but it is drying. And so we're going to talk about it a little bit. So basically, despite it not being dry yet, you can already tell the difference. And also, again, I wasn't joking when I said that this is a very reminiscent step to you using enamel washes with streaking grime and mineral wash, right? Or the panel liners from Tamiya, right? And mineral wash removing the excess. So very similar. Also dries in a very similar sort of time frame as well. And the end result, it will look like you airbrushed it. It's ridiculous. So a lot more even, and you can actually see it right now where the one on the left, the one that's been, we applied glaze medium, it is a lot more even. And there's a very almost very consistent, but not perfect, nothing really is perfect, but very consistent sort of weathering job done throughout. Whereas for the one with just water on the right hand side, you can tell that it kind of sort of just dried at the very top there. And as it was dripping down with gravity, it just kind of dried like in the middle before it got to the bottom. And you can tell that with the medium, it's sort of pooling at the very bottom there a little bit, like right there. But that's not even an issue really, because I'd rather have a little bit of pooling like that compared to streaking. Streaking is terrible because at the end of the day, a little bit of pooling like that, when it dries, it's gonna look like just a collection of dirt, like weathered dirt. And it's intentionally placed there by the artist, even though you and I both know I didn't really intentionally do that. It's just gravity, right? But again, I'd rather have that than streaks. And the difference is stark. So yeah, let's flip over the back here. Same thing. Back of the shoulder pads, and you can tell which one is streakier than the other. And it's actually very, very subtle, but very, very apparent. You can see this one where it dried with water. Massive, massive streak right there where you can tell that's where I applied with my brush. Sometimes you're not just fighting gravity, sometimes you're over brushing, over correcting, and that's exactly what that is. That's not a droplet. That's dropping down while it's drying. That's my brush that I accidentally brushed on while the paint was already in the process of drying. So yeah, and it's not perfect, of course, the one with the glaze medium, and I can see a streak. Wait, that's not a streak actually. That's a brush bristle. It's on the surface. I'm gonna have to pluck that out later with a tweezer. So I thought that was a streak. Turns out it's not. So there we go. Total glaze medium victory there. Domination. Trying to make it stand. Anyway, you might think, well, it takes a long time to dry, but honestly, it's worth it. It's so worth it. I'd rather have that than drying. Plus, you can just do it in the middle of the night, go to sleep. By the time you wake up, it's completely dry and looking airbrushed. Beautiful. You won't even feel it. I've largely discussed the how, like the process of painting it, right? The glaze mediums and the process and showing you the drying times, etc., and the logic behind that. So the why behind the how. But I haven't really discussed the main why we're doing all this, why you should buy mediums. And I've discussed only one part of it, is that it dries too fast. Well, the other part of it is something airbrush painters are familiar with. It's why they stuck with airbrushing, right? Or if you're someone who paints cars and planes, you're incredibly familiar with. Come on, say it with me. That's right. Water-based acrylics are terrible for painting smooth, continuous, and curved surfaces or massive flat panels. They're terrible for both. They don't have the legs to continue on. They dry too fast. They dry too unevenly on curved surfaces, especially where one side may be easier, right, for the paint to drip, right, so because of the curve. Or with flat panels, some parts just dry more unevenly than others. It's slowly changing with newer formulas like the Ionic and Atom paint line from Ammo by MIG, but vast majority of paints from the from acrylic water-based stuff like Vallejo, Citadel Army Painter are largely not like that. They don't really have that self-leveling tech. That's why self-leveling is important, right? Why people covet the self-leveling thinner from Mr. Hobby, the greatest thinner on the market. But that's only for lacquer and water-based acrylics. They don't have that unless you use glaze medium, in which case a lot of your problems are largely resolved. That's why for main body aircraft, the fuselage or the body of a car, they typically either airbrush it or they use a can, because brushing it is just such a pain, especially with water-based. And a lot of those guys typically don't even use acrylics. So you can imagine the pain of using acrylics with brush painting, and they still prefer to use airbrushing or a can. So it should say something, right? So this is a problem that a lot of people in the car and plane community in the hobby are extremely familiar with. And if you're not aware of it, you are now. That is the second half of the why that kind of mingles and coincides with the why previous, which is that it dries too fast and it's especially weather dependent. Mixing those two together, and you're left with a streaky mess that you may or may not be experiencing, but now you know how to resolve it. Mediums. Let's talk options. What are your options here? So obviously I've been flashing them, but Vallejo's glaze medium is my preferred one, and what I know my regulars use the most, right? It comes with 60 and 18 ml, right? Depends on how much you're painting personally, right? Then we also have Army Painter's own equivalent, which is the War Paint Stabilizer. Probably the least popular out of the ones I'm going to show and have shown already. So yeah, it's not as popular, but probably because the War Paint line is considerably more new than Vallejo's and Citadel's, and I just spoiled it. And the other ones would be Technical Lamian Medium. This is Citadel's own equivalent to Glaze Medium. And for if you're using contrast paints, the medium you'll use is contrast medium, obviously. You can use Lamian medium and glaze medium for contrast paints, but it's not as smooth as you would use contrast medium. There is a difference. Not much difference, but it's there. It's enough. So, and of course, Vallejo and Army Painter have their own contrast medium equivalent. Speed paint medium for Army Painter, express medium for Vallejo. But anyway, those are your options, and whichever one you pick, doesn't matter. It can apply to all three of those brands and any other water-based acrylics. That is the beauty of water-based acrylics, is that yes, they're weaker, more sensitive, but at the same time, you can mix and match and share all the thinners, all the mediums, all the paints, and nothing will happen. Nothing bad anyway. Only good things. So please, if you're painting one continuous surface, like the body of a car, a massive flat panel, or just, I don't know, like lots of curves or maybe a steep drop off like that, a smooth drop off at that too, please use mediums if you're brush painting, or use a can if you don't have a medium, and paint the nitty gritty with brush later on. Obviously, assuming you don't have an airbrush, in which case airbrush that stuff, man. Just airbrush it and then move on to the tiny stuff with a brush later. That's it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. It was a lot more of a tricky situation than I intended, just because I have to record this live for me, not for you guys. I don't pre-record anything. We don't do that here. We do it on the spot to prove not a hypothesis, something I know for a fact is true. I just needed to do it perfectly just so I can pull it off in video. If I made a mistake severe enough, I'd have to scrap the entire topic and half the shift is wasted. So that's great. It worked. Anyways, hopefully you enjoyed that video. Again, all items I've shown in the video, at least their listings if they're out of stock, which you can sign up for. All of that is available on the website right now down below. That's our real-time inventory, summerhobbies.ca. Also down below is the links to our social media pages. We're incredibly active on every single one. So please hit us up. message, send us a video or whatever. Tag us if you've used any of our paints, or tag us because of this video if you've used any of the mediums I've recommended. So please follow and subscribe. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a nice day. This is Paul signing out. Bye-bye.